Welcome back, Alpha Hunters. Hopefully, you did have a fantastic week this week. The markets are closed for June the 21st, and we are rapidly approaching the end of Q2. So let's just go and get talking about what went on this week. It was kind of a quiet week, not too much on the news front, really at all. And we did have a little bit of a gap down to start the week. Not a big deal. We saw a pretty good run there on Monday, though. Nice run there on Monday. Tuesday kind of came out, just chopped sideways for most of the day, ended off session lows, kind of towards the high, looked pretty good. Definitely had a nice gap up Thursday. Remember, Wednesday was that holiday right in the middle of the week, so we did have a gap up there on Thursday, and then we just kind of started to steadily pull back throughout the day. Nvidia probably led, I'd say, probably most of this sell-off that we had there midday. Nice little bounce as we went into the afternoon, and then kind of just ended towards session lows, but not at session lows there on Thursday. Friday, nice little gap down here, and kind of just hung out down here for most of the day. Had a little quick sell down, and then it kind of bounced in the middle part of the day, kind of rolled over and just ended kind of where we started there on Friday. So that was kind of the feel and the place of the week. Not too much on the news front. Initial jobless claims that we did get Thursday morning continues to tick higher, higher than forecast. It did come down week over week, but last week was a pretty big jump. So not too much on the news side. It was just kind of more of the market doing what it wanted throughout the week. All right, let's take a look at that sector rotation for the week. Discretionaries. Look at that. Eking out the weekly's best performance right there in the last 30 minutes of the week. Okay. Energies actually dropped off right there at the end, but second best performer on the week. Financials did pretty well. Industrials also did pretty good. Staples and communications did pretty well, just barely outperforming the market there on the week. Kind of in line with the market's materials. Underperformers, we had healthcare. Tech underperformed for the week, interesting. And real estate and utilities at the lower ends on the performance for the week. All right, take a look at the VIX. We're just kind of at the lower ends of the teens area, so really kind of we can just continue to grind higher on the markets. Not really a big deal. We're not really seeing any worrying signs about climbing quite yet until we basically take out this high from late May. Not really too much to kind of talk about here. DXY in the dollar index. Yeah, we had that bounce from late last week after Fed last Wednesday, and we had a little bit of a pullback, and then we bounced Thursday, Friday. Looks pretty good. I would imagine the dollar probably continues higher going forward. I wouldn't be surprised though if we had a little bit more of a pullback. Let the moving averages kind of come up a little bit. GLD, the gold trust. We were looking pretty good actually going into the end of the day of Thursday. Thought maybe we would just continue higher here, but we dropped off there Friday. I honestly think gold probably just in a sideways consolidation here for a little bit, for a period of time, and I think you're probably just going to be accumulating positions now. And even if we do drop, you're probably just going to continue to accumulate positions. All right, take a look at the 10-year yields. And yeah, I mean, we had a pretty good drop last week, so we didn't really do too much this week. And it's kind of just in a position where it could definitely just chop sideways and get pushed down by the moving averages later on, which means bonds would do pretty good. We could also base here. We could also start basing here, and maybe we go a little bit lower, but we could definitely be basing here. So it's good. It's just going to take some time. I wouldn't expect, in my opinion, and Brent came by the live stream earlier this week and kind of talked about yields pretty good period of time, but I wouldn't, in my perspective, be thinking yields are going to be dropping below 3.5% or so. I mean, back down below these lows, I don't think so. I would have a hard time believing they would get below the lows that we were seeing at the beginning of the year even. So that's just my perspective. I mean, if we do roll down, it'd be choppy, and I don't think it'd be long lasting. 10 and 2 inversion didn't really do too much this week, so yields basically all moved about the same. And that's about it. Not really too much to kind of go talk about here. Not really moving in any direction in a meaningful way right now. HYG, high yield corporate bonds. Yep, if yields be dropping off, bonds will be doing pretty good. And the HYG actually looks pretty good. I like this move that it had back towards the end of April, beginning of May. This little cup here that we kind of had throughout the end of May, beginning of June. I mean, this looks pretty good. If we can just get above this 77.5 level and make our way up to 78 and get above 78 and make, that, I mean, that looks pretty good LQD, investment grade corporate bonds. Yeah, nice little consolidation this week. It is hugging the 10 EMA, so it needs to be breaking out probably early this next week, or it might be, if it continues to sideways consolidate, it might be dropping off. Be curious to see what happens, and I think we just need to see what happens early this next week. And really the same thing kind of goes here for the TLT. You can see, I mean, we've had some pretty good breakouts, especially breaking these downtrends, but we haven't really continued higher, and now we're just kind of consolidating here. So you can kind of vaguely see here over the past couple of days, especially like just this past week, we got a little bit of a pennant pattern, so some consolidation going on here. And are we going to continue higher? If it's going to happen, it's going to happen early parts of this next week. And if it doesn't, then we could be breaking down that 10 EMA, which then breaks momentum. And at that point in time, just about anything can happen. All right, take a look at that RSP equal weight SP 500. Nice bounce there on Monday, and then didn't really do too much throughout the rest of the week, but it looks pretty good, especially that lower wick there on Friday. To go into next week, maybe see some bullishness. We can break higher early parts of this next week. Maybe we make a run. I think you probably start to see some rotation out of big tech names. I mean, they're getting a little concentrated for my liking. I think you probably will continue to see people diversify away from some of those areas, but people are also going to try to hop on the train as well. So, I mean, who really knows? I do like opportunities in some of the other areas that are not big tech. That's just me. And take a look at the DIA, the Dow Jones Industrial Average ETF. Yeah, I mean, it looks pretty good. We had a pretty good run there on Monday and Thursday this week. Nice little doji inside day action. So this looks like a pretty good continuation kind of candle, especially with that high close that we had on Thursday. I would expect the DIA to be moving higher over the this next week. IWM Russell 2000 ETF. Yeah, this kind of talking about on the live stream on Friday. This thing looks like it's ready to break this downtrend. And with how much volume that we had come in there on Friday, I think you're probably going to want to be bullish here. Yeah, that's just kind of my perspective. It's been hugging this downtrend line, and not saying it might not go lower, maybe here for the near term, but once it breaks this downtrend, I think you're going to see a pretty good amount of capital inflow and probably take off here. But I do like the volume pickup here, just kind of like it out of a nowhere type scenario. And yeah, I like it. The Qs. Oh, those triple Qs, those tech heavy Qs. Yeah, it looks pretty good. I mean, what else you want to say? It's just been grinding higher until we got to Thursday. Nice little pullback there. And we've kind of been in that situation here recently where some major ETFs are on rebalance mode. I think the big one, the XLK, the tech sector spider ETF or SP ETF, kind of had a rebalance on Friday. So you saw some pretty good movements across some of the stocks that had some rebalancing. Anyways, now that might be done, it's going to be interesting to see kind of how things go, because rebalancing always kind of brings in new capital, brings out old capital as you get the rebalance between certain stocks. So we might just see some wonkiness here, okay, as people maybe profit take and some things that have worked, and maybe buy the dip on some things that haven't been working. So obviously I bring that up on talking about the Qs because, well, we've seen NVIDIA really kind of take over the weighting here, and it hasn't really been represented all that well, but now it has a huge representation. So just be mindful of that. I'm not saying that you're going to see the Qs have a massive sell-off, or honestly, I don't see a reason for that. I could definitely see it pull back some more, but honestly, there's so much concentration out there, and I think people are just now chasing to chase because they have to. And speaking of a very similar situation, SPY also, people are probably going to chase it, and because they have to. It's how they're measured. All these big funds, they're measured on performance, and investors are going to want to know why they're not performing like other funds. So yeah, SPY, probably continues to grind higher. And if you want the more direct, so wouldn't be surprised if we see some pullbacks on some of these ETFs like the Qs and SPY, but Also, wouldn't be surprised if they continue to grind higher, maybe the latter part of next week, or maybe even as we get to the beginning of July, that kind of thing. It is that dead period, kind of at the end of the quarter, where there's not really much news, and we're definitely past major earnings. So it's kind of just that dead period. We don't really have much data. We'll have a little bit of data this next week, mostly on Thursday, Friday. And really, we won't really have much in the first week of July either. It really won't be until we get to about the end of the second week. And really, we won't really have much to kind of talk about in the way of earnings until we get to the end of the second week of July. So, yeah, it's going to be kind of just a sleepy time period, but it's also a very important time period to keep your eye on the market because there's not many catalysts out there. So what the market's doing is what investors are doing. And that is very important to see kind of what investors are doing. How are yields moving? How are dollar precious metals moving? How are some of these different ETFs moving? It kind of gives you an insight into what investors are kind of thinking about asset allocation. Alpha Hunters, have a great weekend. Take care.